Every podcaster wants one thing, a show that people cannot stop listening to. But here's the thing, having a binge-worthy podcast has two crucial elements to it that most people don't really talk about. A concept that grabs attention and a mission that keeps people coming back time and time again for more. Your concept is your creative design. It's your format, it's your angle, and it's your show's personality. Your mission is the heartbeat behind that, who you're serving, why it matters, and the transformation that your listener is going to get at the end of the day. Today, we're talking about how diving into both and nailing both gets your podcast just over the edge versus somebody else's. Let's get into it. First things first, before we dive in, I want to highlight my podcast launch blueprint for you. It's in the episode notes below, and it'll take all the concepts that we're talking about today and dive even deeper. So if you want to go deeper, grab this free download. It's in the episode notes below. It's called the Podcast Launch Blueprint, and you will gain so much more information about what we're talking about today and go even deeper, which is fantastic. Let's start off by talking about your podcast concept. This is your creative container. When you're creating your podcast, it's really easy to get overwhelmed by all of the different formats that you can use for your show. You can have a solo podcast, you can have an interview format podcast, you can do roundtable, you can have a narrative style, storytelling style. Truly, the possibilities for your show are endless, and not one format is better than another. And sometimes you can actually have a mix of different formats merged in together to create your show. So sometimes people will think that they want to start off with a solo podcast, or they think they want to start off with a guest podcast or an interview-based podcast. And then they find out, actually, I want a hybrid podcast between the two of them, between a guest podcast and a solo podcast. It's really critical to understand what is the format of your show. What types of episodes are you going to be creating? And what does the flow of that content look like? Why it's so important is because knowing and understanding the format of your podcast is going to give you so much more clarity and so much more direction in the way that you want to go, in the show that you want to create. So I always want you to consider to start creating your show with the format in mind. Are you going to do a solo podcast? Are you doing a guest interview podcast? Is it going to be more storytelling? Is it narrative? Is it a roundtable? Are you a co-hosted podcast? You need to figure that out right off the bat so that you know exactly the type of content that you're going to be creating. Then I want you to think about the style of your podcast. What kind of solution is the podcast providing? What kind of questions does your listener have that you may not even know that they have right off the bat? And how does your content be positioned as the solution to the questions that they have before they even know that they have them? It feels like a little bit of a tongue twister, I know. But what I'm trying to say is that understanding the style of your show, understanding the topics and the format of the show, and the types of conversations you're going to be having ultimately results in some kind of answer to a question that somebody has, whether they realize that they have that question or not. Because at the end of the day, no matter what format, no matter what style, no matter what concept you choose for your show, your podcast becomes a solution to the problem that somebody else has, whether they realize it or not, okay? Even if you're a comedy podcast, even if you're an entertainment style podcast, even if you are a narrative podcast, you're solving a solution for someone who has a problem. So it could be that someone's problem is that they are bored and they need entertainment, or they need answers to a question that your content provides in an educational format. So think about the style of your show in addition to the format of your show. Is it educational? Is it storytelling? Is it going to be comedic? Is it funny? Is it motivational? What is the style of podcast that you are creating, and how is it contributing to solving the problem that your listener has that only you can solve? Because at the end of the day, each show has a unique angle. No matter what type of podcast that you're creating, there's a specific angle that that podcast has that another show may not have. So for example, take shows in the self-help space. There's all kinds of shows and all kinds of podcasts that are in the self-help space. All of them are providing a different solution to a different set of problems that somebody has, right? So you're never going to have two podcasts that are going to be the exact same, because the people who are listening to the podcast episodes that you have or that you put out are looking for answers to very specific questions. And not everyone's content is the exact same. So what is your unique angle for your show? What is unique about your approach versus somebody else's in the same niche market as you? How are you positioning your content in a way that other people are not? And how are you making sure that your content becomes the solution to the questions that people have and gives them that next level up, that next step that they need to take in a really significant way? Thinking about the angle of your podcast will help differentiate you in a market that may be oversaturated. I hear this all the time, that there's so many different podcasts. There are so many people creating all these podcasts. There's no space for my show. But when you create a show with a specific angle in mind, you're providing people more information. You're giving people a different way to learn something that they may already know. Everyone delivers their content differently. So I want you to think about what is your unique angle and what is your specific thing, your secret sauce, your thing, and your way of delivering your show that is different from everybody else. I want to give you a little bit of an example to take with you to make it a little bit more tangible. So let's say you're starting a business podcast or a show in the business space and you want to give people business tips. Instead of creating a podcast that's only talking about business topics or business tips, you could create a show that's a little bit more specific. Something like 10-minute daily briefs on sales tactics that win every time. That's a little bit long for a podcast name, like a show name. But having that said, it is more specific and it gives your audience an answer to a question that they may not know that they have, but they know that they need an answer to. So I want you to think about what is the format of your podcast? What is the style of the show? And what is your unique angle that gives people an advantage over somebody else's show? We want people to listen into your content. We want them to make it all the way to the end. So how can you make your content the most relevant? I think about this often. There are so many different shows about podcasting and there's so many people with different perspectives about podcasting. But my personal approach to podcasting is really different than other people. I always try and bring a unique angle. I always try and bring in a perspective that most people don't want to talk about. There's a lot of things that people gatekeep behind the scenes in the podcasting world because it's not as complicated as people make it sound. And so my purpose, my mission here in doing this podcast episode for you is to give you the tangible things that you need to launch your podcast, to grow your podcast, and to monetize your podcast. That is my purpose with doing this podcast every single week. You can Google almost anything, right? So how do I make sure that my content is relevant to you? And how do I make sure that my content is answering your specific set of questions that I know that you have? Because these are the same questions that my clients have all the time. So anyways, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a different perspective in that way. The second thing that I want to talk about is your mission statement. I started talking about mission statements for your podcast years and years and years ago, and I hear people talking about it here and there, and it's totally fine. You know, different ideas get taken and expanded on, which is absolutely incredible. Yet there's something that's so important about your mission statement because it becomes your purpose and your promise. There's 3 questions that I always get my clients to think about when we're starting a new show. Whether I'm working with a new launch client or we're taking someone's show, we're rebranding it and relaunching it, I always make my clients write me out a mission statement for their podcast. And it answers 3 specific questions. So the first question is, what is your show about? The second question is, who is it for? And the third question is, why should they care? And I really want to emphasize on this last question here, why should they care? Because you can very easily identify who the podcast is for and what you talk about. But the piece of identifying why should they care becomes your transformational statement. It becomes your transformational piece for your podcast. Answering why should they care gives you a direct look at what is important to your audience. What is important for them to hear in a conversation? What's important for them to take away with them and maybe learn something new, maybe transform their mindset, maybe see things from a different perspective. That one statement of why should they care anchors you back every single time to your show. Because let's be honest, when you're creating a podcast, there's a lot that goes into it. In fact, so much so that I'm doing a 10-part series over the next few weeks of all of the different things that you need when it comes to launching your show. And having that said, even though there's so much that goes into it, oftentimes it can be pretty simple. But when you think about all of the different elements between setting up the foundational parts of your show, the design work that goes into it, writing, intros, outros, show descriptions, recording, guest recording, editing, show notes, it becomes a lot. And sometimes we need something to anchor us back into why it is that we began this specific thing to begin with. I always think about, why are you doing the specific thing that you are doing? And why should people care about it? You need to be able to answer that question, because that gives your content a deeper purpose. It relates you back to your show when things feel really difficult, when things feel overwhelming, when things feel like, oh my gosh, I can't possibly continue. It is so much work. It is so overwhelming. You anchor back to that statement. Why should they care? It keeps you grounded in your personal mission of creating the show, in your personal reason for bringing this content to life to begin with. So again, these 3 questions, what is the show about, who is it for, and why should they care, are questions that you should be able to very, very, very easily answer when it comes to the purpose of your show. And it becomes a really transformational element to helping people relate back with your content, because the truth of the matter is, people want clarity in their content. They want to know exactly what they're getting, why you're speaking about this content. Because the truth of the matter is this: people are busy. People choose topics and episode topics and shows based off of the things that they are interested in. The clearer you can make it for your audience to understand how the topics will relate to them and will resonate with them and be of interest to them, the more clear you can make that, the better it is for you. It then becomes more likely that people will press play and that people will listen all the way to the end, because that's a really important metric. We want people to stay all the way to the end. Less rambling, more concise, and things that are actually going to help people. So if we bring both of these together, your concept is what makes people press play. And your mission statement is what's going to make them hit subscribe and come back for more week over week, month over month, year over year. And then you can take this a step further and you use these foundational elements to help you write your show description, your intro, your outro, your trailer, your marketing, your newsletters, all of these different pieces combined. And then you deliver upon your promise of creating a binge-worthy experience for your audience. If you really want your podcast to stand out in 2025, please don't just grab a mic and start talking into the void. Don't wing it. Build a concept that makes people curious and a mission that keeps them loyal. And of course, if you want some extra help, you can grab that podcast launch blueprint that is in the episode notes below. It's a free guide for you, so you just click it and you put in your information and you will have it delivered right to your inbox and you can dive right in. And I also have a whole bunch of other resources that you get in there as well. So please feel free to click on the link in the episode notes below and tell me how you're going to implement this in your podcast. Whether you're launching for the first time or you're doing a rebrand, I would love to know how you incorporate some of the podcast concepts and also some of the podcast mission statement into what you are creating. I challenge you to actually write a mission statement for your show. And then I also challenge you to tell me about it afterwards. Thank you so much for being here on this episode with me today. And I will see you same time, same place next week. Bye for now.